Welcome to Protagonist Pub. My name is Tammy, and this is where characters gather. Well, it's another Monday, and I had a wacky reading week. I only finished 2 books. I have a bunch of books in progress, and they're at various stages. None of them are very far. Well, one of them is almost 200 pages, but 200 out of 700 and something is nothing, so that doesn't really count either. I, for the most part, just had trouble finding something that, held my attention. So I took most of the weekend off reading, and I am okay with that. So, what did I read this week? Well, I read a library book, and I read a Dave 24 and 24 book. So, let's do the library book first. And surprisingly, nonfiction. Jane Austen's Best Friend, The Life and Influence of Martha Lloyd by Zoe Wheddon. It's a wee thin little thing. The text is under 200 pages. In fact, even with all the notes and the indexing, the entire book is 208 pages. However, this is a fascinating read. Jane Austen is, the subject of many works of nonfiction. There's lots of Jane Austen speculation. There's lots of modern day, post Jane Austen life interpretations of her relationships and her letters and her interaction with her family. And there has not been, at least to my knowledge, and by no means am I Jane Austen expert or scholar or have, widely read biographies of Jane Austen. Martha is always shuttled aside as, the friendly acquaintance that came in to help around the house and nurse Mrs. Austen. And she was much more than that. And her and Jane were friends for almost 30 years. And there is a 10-year age gap between Jane and Martha, with Martha being the elder. And if you hear banging, the bird is throwing a tantrum. And you don't have a 30-year relationship with someone, 10 years older than you, unless they actually mean something in your life. And this was just a beautifully written book, and I thoroughly enjoyed it. It is well documented. She talks about other authors, but she doesn't rely on their conclusions. If she comes to the same conclusion, she shows you her path to get there. And this is not a statement I would have made 10 years ago, but today I'm going to make it. I was deeply impressed that nowhere in this work, in this book, did the author attempt to intimate that there was something more between Jane and Martha. And I'm appreciative of that, especially given the correspondence that, is leading authors to make similar intimations or outright state that in The Life of Emily Dickinson and her sister-in-law. I appreciate the fact that wasn't even hinted at. And to be honest, I was surprised. I expected it to be. Excuse me, bird. So, if you need something new and interesting to read for Jane Austen July, this is a very easy recommendation. If you need to fulfill a nonfiction requirement, this one is short and impactful and easy to read. So, go see if your library has it. It's a very easy recommendation. What is the other book I finished this week? I finished The Ladies of Ivy Cottage by Julie Klassen. This is a Dave 24 and 24 book. It's the second book in the Tales from Ivy Hill series. I listened to this one on Audible. It is part of the Audible Plus catalog, as is the entire series. And I finished this up while I was cleaning up WoW characters for expansion that releases in the end of August, and pre-patch releases tomorrow. And like every Julie Klassen I have ever read, I loved this one. So this one focuses on Rachel and Mercy, who live in the house of Mercy's parents, who they've let her live for the last 10 years. Mercy runs a school for girls, and Rachel has lost everything with the death of her father, and she is a spinster, and she needs to find her own way in the world. And the Ladies' Business Society of Ivy Hill comes up with the idea to help Rachel that she should start a circulating library. And so the women of Ivy Hill and the men help Rachel, get her inheritance from her father, which is his library collection of books, moved over, and bookshelves installed at the cottage, and a circulating library opens. And I just loved that fact. It was a book about libraries, or a library. And circulating libraries at this time were a paid membership thing, which I also found fascinating. Now we pay for it with tax dollars. And this was just a delightful read. I will tell you, there is more romance in this book, but it isn't anything I would qualify as a romance-heavy book. There is a variety of threads running through this story that interweave from the first book and will carry through to the third book in the series, which is The Brides of Ivy Hill. And I absolutely I loved it. The narration was great. The characters are great. And the threads are separate and interconnected. And you see this town and the people in this, wee little village begin to remake themselves and the village around them as time and technology progress. This series, I am thoroughly enjoying. I am thoroughly enjoying it, which is a pleasant surprise. No, it's not a pleasant surprise. It's not an unexpected surprise, to be honest. If you are looking for an action-packed novel, this is not the author for you. These are historical fiction with gentle everyday faith, but it is not one action scene after another. It's just a well-written, immersive story, and you cannot beat Julie Klassen for taking a group of characters and interweaving their lives and making you fall in love with everything that's going on. I am very much looking forward to the third book and the other Julie Klassen that's sitting on my shelf, and I will be adding more. So, okay. So what are the vast collection of, I started it and have not yet finished it books. Let's talk about those now. Okay, so first up would be a Dave 24 and 24 book. That would be The Fate of the Dwarves by Marcus Heights. This is the fourth book in the Dwarf series. These are translated from the German, and I got 144 pages into it. It is 752 pages long. As it's the fourth book in the series, I'm not going to talk about it in detail because you need to know what happens in the first three books. It is fantasy, obviously. It's about dwarves. It is grimdark fantasy, but it isn't it is nowhere near the most gruesome grimdark I have ever read. It's just it is grimdark, but it isn't gross grimdark. Isn't that descriptive? It isn't gross grimdark. So next up would be Jane and the Unpleasantness at Scargrave Manor by Stephanie Barron. This is the first book in the Jane Austen Investigate series. I'm 50 pages into this. I'm thoroughly enjoying it. This is another case of brain flitting from book to book. So there's that. Then I started Firestarter by Nancy Mayle. This is from the Audible Plus catalog. It is the second book of the Casey Quinn trilogy. And it is my first Audible audiobook from Nancy Mayle, and I am thoroughly enjoying it. Christian romantic suspense. This one is taking place in Nebraska, and Kaylee's there to take care of her dying mother when she learns that there's a series of arsons in town, and it carries on from there. I'm loving it. I'm absolutely loving it. So, yeah, I would be unsurprised if I didn't come back next week and tell you I had not only finished it, but, read more than one in my head from Audible, because that seems to be working for me right now. So, who knows? Okay, so on my Kindle, I have multiple books in progress. So first up would be the novella for the August book club choice. That is Always by Jody Headland. Like all the covers in this trilogy, the novella that kicks it all off, it's like 175 pages. The cover is gorgeous. It's absolutely gorgeous. I'm started on my phone, so it doesn't say here. I'm like 10% in. I'm enjoying it immensely. Again, brain wanted something else. So, I have also started The Brilliance of Stars by Janelle Cieslewski. This is the first book in the Jack and Ivy series. It is on Kindle Unlimited as well. This one is also starts off in Russia. I'm on I've read the prologue. I'm on chapter 1. This is definitely another, I would say this is romantic suspense. I'm very, very interested in this. I like her writing style. The action is written really well. So, there's that. Hang on, there's more. I have also read the prologue for what is the title of this book? Hang on. Autumn by the Sea by Melissa Tagg. This is Christian romance. It would be my first book by the author. I do not know if it's going to be for me. I will let you know next week. The prologue is interesting. It wasn't terrific. It wasn't bad, but it's a prologue without context. And that sounds weird because it's a prologue, but the character is writing a letter in the prologue, trying to explain stuff, but you don't have any context for the explanation or the backstory they're trying to fill in. And so it's a little, just ever so slightly off kilter. So I have my Kindle open. I do have 2 DNFs for the week that I need to talk about. And they're both they both had the same problem for me. So the first one would be The Anti-Wedding Party by Lucy Knott. This was a NetGalley book. It is available on Kindle Unlimited now. So in exchange for my fair and honest review, here it is. This book was not for me. I knew this very, very quickly. It opens up with a romance that is, I'm trying to say this without getting caught by YouTube censors, not in my wheelhouse of choice. How's that? So I am DNFing this book on NetGalley, and I don't know how it, slipped into my purview, but it did. It shouldn't have. The second one I DNF'd this week was, I believe, a Goodreads win. That was a Storybook Wedding by KG MIcciche. And this opens up with the same kind of romance in the beginning, except, and I DNF'd it before this came up. I looked at some reviews because it was off. The bride catches her bride cheating on her, and then things progress from there, and I wasn't interested, and so it's been DNF'd. So those are my only DNFs for the week. And yeah, sometimes, cute covers don't work. What can I say? Or cute titles, for that matter. So what am I going to read? Well, besides the things I started, yeah, that is a very good question. I don't know. I honestly don't know. But I'm sure you'll know next week. So that was the reading week that was. And I hope you guys had a much more productive and beneficial reading week. Even though I finished 2 books, it doesn't feel like I read anything last week, which is not a situation that normally agrees with me. So Leave a comment down below, like and subscribe, and I will see you here next time at the Protagonist Pub.